Vishnu, and President of our function, Professor Vijay Naganavasa, Chairman, Department of Studies and Research in English. And here we have a chief guest, Professor Dayanand G. Savkar, sir, Director, PG Center, Vijaypur, and a guest, Dr. Tandav Gowda, Administrative Officer, Higher Education Council, Bangalore, and our organizing secretary, Dr. Fayaz Ahmed Dilkal, sir, Assistant Professor and Local Health, Department of Studies and Research in English, and the faculty members, now it's time for our now it's time to address the gathering. I now request Professor Ramchandra Gowda, sir, to proceed.
Okay, thank you very much. Is it audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir. You are.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you very much for inviting me for inaugurating this webinar. Okay. So on research methodology, it's a good initiative during lockdown period. I thank ILCAL for organizing webinar and inviting many people for this. Okay. So if it comes to research in social, particularly in social science research, people are actually following different methods for conducting or for doing research. In science, there is a way, that means systematic body of knowledge, they actually go by the results. But in social science research, we use different methods, different methodology. There is no proper even what is that guidelines. Different universities will follow different methods. In some universities, actually, some of findings they bring it to the opening of chapter itself. In some universities, it will be taken to last chapter. So like that. So there is no proper guidelines, even though because there are very good books in research. Particularly when we were doing research we used to follow Pauline V. Young, or Good and Hatte, or Wilkinson Bhandarkar. So even Indian authors also, O.R. Krishnaswamy and Ranganathan. That means we used to follow these books and conduct research. But to my surprise, when I evaluated almost 200 to 300 theses, but except in few universities, so everyone is following different methodology, different practice to draft the thesis. Okay, for example, so it starts from the selecting of the topic. There is a say that a problem well put is half solved. That means while selecting the topic itself, so you should select a right topic and it should be researchable, because in many cases I have seen that many researchers they select topic only for getting PhD. It should not be. See, research means one should find out something should contribute to the existing knowledge. So otherwise it cannot be called as research, because I've seen in my own previous universities there are research in particularly Canada. For example, Reshme Peta Totta Kannada Sahitigalu. Reshme Peta Totta Kannada Sahitigalu. What is that you are going to achieve from that? So therefore, while selecting the topic itself, so one should take care of whether it is researchable or whether they are going to contribute something to the existing knowledge, etc. So it should be actually find out, and only they should select the topic. For example, so even many people actually they are not drafted properly the statement of the problem. So there will not be any statement of the problem. The topic itself is not researchable. Okay, and review of literature. So many people actually they just do one or two research review of literatures, and they say that so my research is different from other research, something like that. So they start doing research on that. But see, previous studies should be referred properly. then only we can come to know about what exactly the depth of the research, or what exactly we should do something, or what exactly how it should be conducted, research should be conducted, or it should carry out, etc. We'll come to know only through review of literature. But unfortunately, so nowadays in social science research, many researchers are not doing this for just for sake of review of literature. They do research, review of literature. And also, even I have seen many people are not actually drafted objectives of the research properly. Objectives of the study is not actually drafted properly. So therefore, because objectives are very much important, is nothing but questions. What we are going to find out the answers for the questions. That means objectives are nothing but questions. The researcher will actually himself will put some questions. What exactly you should find out. So it should be in the form of question, objectives. So therefore, properly objectives should be drafted, and also even particularly hypothesis. Hypothesis, I don't know whether it is in languages hypothesis will be followed or not, but particularly in commerce and management research, so we actually go by the hypothesis. So hypothesis will be tested properly by using different statistical methods. So nowadays, even in commerce and management also, that means if suppose if a person uses 3-4 methods of statistics, chi-square test, that this etc., it will be considered as good research. It's not so. That means appropriate statistical tools should be used to collect the data. Statistical tools used to analyze the data. So then only we can get the good results. Otherwise, just for because research means the thesis should have some statistical tools. We have, that means if you use this, so you will be treated as good thesis or something like that. It's not so. So therefore, appropriate hypothesis should be properly drafted, and to test the hypothesis, correct statistics tools should be used for collecting data and also analyze that to get the results. Because in science, so they have go by the what is that results, but it's not so in case of particularly in social sciences. So therefore, my humble request to all the budding researchers, that means while selecting the topic itself, it should be selected properly and it should be researchable. That means one should contribute something to the existing knowledge, then only they should select the topic. Otherwise, for getting degree sake, for getting PhD, that means, sorry, suppose, for example, in marketing, what we say, for example, marketing of consumer durable products, research conducted in Bombay. The same topic, marketing of consumer durable products in Bangalore. It does not serve the purpose. So that means the researcher should think that he should contribute something to the existing knowledge. So then only such topics should be selected, not for this thing. So therefore, even in, for example, there was a, actually I had seen, particularly in science, one of my friend's cousin who got PhD for 32 pages. That means his thesis itself was 32 pages. That means like that, quality research should be actually carried out. Quality research should be produced. So then only it will have some meaning. For example, even in case, for example, some I've seen many theses in summary of findings, conclusions, suggestions, etc. There will not be any conclusions. So findings, then suggestions. So without conclusion, how you are going to suggest something? Because conclusion is nothing but what the problem. That means you are going to identify the problems after studying that for 3 years or 4 years. You are going to identify the problems or questions. So to overcome the questions, you are going to give some suggestions. So like that. So the research, particularly in social science research, the thesis should be drafted. Okay. So I think you are inviting good speakers for the webinar. Okay. So therefore, please carry on your discussions and do some fruitful discussions. I already mentioned that in particularly in my own Bangalore University. So that means we have seen such topics. So my humble suggestions to all the researchers. That means you select the topic which is researchable. It can give something which can be followed by many people. For example, in commerce, 1405 1,405. They have conducted Arthon studies on behavioral science. Even today, we refer Arthon studies, which is the research conducted in 1405. Okay, so that means it should be, the topic should be like that, and the results should be useful. That means there should be some usefulness from the results, and it should contribute something to the existing knowledge. So therefore, so this is my suggestions to all the researchers. That means do some good research. Don't do research for degree sake. Now it has become a fashion that because UGC is giving some 2-3 increments for research for MPhil or PhD, so therefore everybody wants to do research. So therefore, my sincere request is, so don't do research for degree sake. That means to learn something, to contribute something, you do research, but you follow whatever the principles of research in your thesis. Thank you very much for inviting me to inaugurate this webinar on research methodology. I wish the participants and the department, you're doing good job. Okay, please carry on. I wish you all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your valuable insights and inspiring us. So on behalf of our director, Dayanand Savkar sir, faculty members and our organizing secretary, I thank you so much for sharing your views.
Okay.
Now I request our chief guest of our today's webinar, Professor Dayanand G. Savkar sir, Director, RCU PG Center, to share your views.
Good morning, everybody.
Yes,
Is
sir.
it
Please go
audible,
ahead.
sir?
Yeah, you're audible, sir. Please.
Yeah. Good morning. I appreciate the initiation taken by the Department of English at PG Center, Bijapur. And I wish you all the best for the participants. And I hope by the end of the day, we will come up with some fruitful discussion and conclusions, which can help your research student to continue with their research. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you for inspiring us. Now I request for presidential address by Professor Vijay Naganavar, sir, Chairman, Department of English, RCU, Belgavi. Sir, please.
Thank you so much, sir. At the same time, I would like to thank the director of PG Center.
Sir, start once again, sir. Now you have been unmuted. Please.
Oh my.
Yeah, sorry.
Good morning, all of you. Honorable Vice Chancellor, Director of the PG Center, and Coordinator of the seminar. At the outset, let me thank our Honorable Vice Chancellor for accepting the invitation to inaugurate the wonderful seminar on research methodology. His inputs were very, very useful, and sir, we promise you that the department, we will see that the research done in the department will be meaningful and really helpful to the society. I thank the PG Center Director, Dr. Dayanand Savkar sir, for providing all the facilities to conduct this seminar by providing internet and all. I congratulate Fayaz Ilkal, coordinator of this seminar, for wonderfully organizing and pooling all the research scholars and teachers across the country. I wish you all the best and pray that this seminar becomes a grand success. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Tandagoda sir, please address the gathering. Yeah.
Sir.
Yeah.
No, I'm just actually.
Yeah, 2 minutes. 2 minutes. 2-3 minutes is more than sufficient.
Sir, minister came.
Okay. No
Minister
issues,
came
no
in now.
issues. Yeah, no issues. So now, yeah, wind up. Yes, over to you, Reshma.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Let's begin the first session.
Let us and for this session we have our resource person, Dr. Kiran Sabnur, sir. And I take up this opportunity to introduce our resource person, Dr. Kiran P. Sabnur, sir. He hails from Dharwad. Presently, he is working as Assistant Professor, Department of Studies in Research in Library and Information Science, RCU, Belgavi. Prior to this, Kiran P. Sabnur, sir, he served as Library Assistant at Raman Research Institute, Bangalore. He has pursued his graduation in Science and post-graduation from Library and Information Science from Karnataka University, Dharwad. He has undergone many training programs at most reputed institutions at Bangalore. He has done his PhD work on the title Eugene Garber, a bibliometric study from Karnataka University, Dharwad. Sir has a rich teaching experience at PG level, and he has authored many research articles published at national and international peer-reviewed journals, seminars, conferences, and book chapters. He is also the recipient of Best Research Paper Award at National Conference on Systematrics and Knowledge Management in the year 2013. His areas of interest are bibliometric and scientometric, digital library, open access resources, user studies, and information systems. He has carried out a research project funded by ICSSR Delhi, and under his guidance, 4 research scholars are pursuing PhD, and he has delivered more than 13 special lectures, and he has visited as resource person at various conferences, seminars, and workshops. Now, I request to take over the session and share your valuable suggestions and guidance to the students. So please.
Yes, Kiran, over to you.
Dr. Kiran P. Sabnur, sir, I have a question to you.
Yeah, thank you, Fazal sir. Fayaz,
Yeah, relax. Yeah, it's okay.
okay, yeah. Yeah, good morning to you all. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are. Please proceed.
Yeah, yeah.
Off it.
Okay. Respected Professor M. Ramchandra Gowda sir, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Rani Chennamma University, Belgavi, a source of motivation and inspiration for all of us. The chief guest of this webinar, Professor Saukar sir, President of this webinar, Professor Vijay Nagannavar sir, Senior Faculty Member Ashok D'Souza sir, workshop this webinar coordinator, Dr. Fayaz Ilkal sir, my esteemed colleagues and faculty members of Rani Chennamma University, dear research scholars, PG students, delegates and participants of this international workshop. It gives me an immense pleasure to connect all of you through this online platform via Zoom software. And I'm very happy to share my thoughts and views regarding the topic which have been chosen for this webinar. My topic is open educational resources for teaching, learning, and research. So this topic is, I feel, is very apt for today's present scenario. So by sitting at home, how we can learn, how we can do research, how we can prepare ourselves for teaching and learning.
Please unmute yourself, Kiran.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me share my PowerPoint presentation. So today's topic is open educational resource for teaching, learning, and research. Now, let us begin with the question, what are these open educational resources? Now, these open educational resources are the teaching, learning, and research materials in any medium, whether it may be digital or printed documents or otherwise, and that reside in the public domain. That means which have been released under an open license that permits no cost access, use, adoption, and redistribution by others with no or other restrictions. So this is a definition given by UNESCO of open educational resources. So with this, we can understand that these open educational resources are basically teaching, learning, and research materials, and which are available free of cost. And users at the other end, they can make use of these resources for teaching and learning and research activities. And they can freely use, access, adopt, and remix all these contents they can do. So what kind of so these open educational resources, what kind of content they include? These open educational resources are intellectual property licenses, so that permits the free use, repurposing by others. So basically this OER include full courses, course materials, modules, textbooks, stream videos. There are a lot of materials which can be go into the open educational resources. This is the definition given by Hewlett Foundation. And this open educational resources, OER, so that includes the textbooks, online tutorials, lecture notes, syllabus materials, videos, podcast. So all other things they can include as a open educational in the OER platforms. And these also contains the open coursewares, open textbooks, and open learning content. So these are all the contents of open educational resources. And who are stakeholders of this OER? So basically, teachers at any levels, whether the primary levels or senior secondary level, or UG or PG levels. So all the teachers are considered as the stakeholders. What they can do, they can create the contents, they can create a course, define the courses, start the course, assist the learners, and prepare for taking the examinations to the students. And at the learner's end, so what they can do, they can enroll the courses, study the courses, interact with the teacher, appear the exam, and get through the exams and get the credits or certificates as it matters. So these are the stakeholders. Other than these, administrators. So these are all comes under the stakeholders of OER. And this OER, so we have to consider any content which comes under the OER platform, it should satisfy all the 5R activities. So there are 5R activities. First one is the retain. So any learner who can download the OER contents, he can make and own a copy. And secondly, he can reuse and use in a wide range of ways. He can use it for his teaching purposes, preparing for lesson plans, or learning purposes, or any other purposes, and revise. So all the downloaded content he can adapt, modify, and improve. And fourth one is the remix. The learners can, or the students, they can combine 2 or more open learning contents, okay, and they can do modification and prepare their own contents and redistribute. The content downloaded from OER platform, they can share with others. So these are 5R activities associated with open educational learning activities. And some of the advantages of OER in educational system, as suggested by Kanwar, Kodandaram, and Umar in 2010, they suggest this OER helping the developing countries save course content development time and money. So these course contents help saving the time in development of the OER contents, facilitating and sharing of knowledge. This is very important benefit of OER. And addressing the digital divide by providing quality building resources for educators, helping to preserve and disseminate indigenous knowledge, and improving educational quality at all levels, whether the school levels or undergraduate or postgraduate levels. So this is major advantages of OER in the educational system. When you consider the UGC, while setting up the OER at various levels, UGC aimed at the OER should be enhancing the gross enrollment ratio obviously in the higher level, higher education level, and democratizing of higher education to large segments of the Indian population, reaching out to the unreached. So this is one of the most important aim of OER, and providing opportunities for upgradation of skills and qualifications and meeting the demands of lifelong learning. So these are some of the aims as considered by the UGC while setting up the OER in Indian scenario. I have come across one survey, online survey, which is conducted. The title of the survey was Open Education Resources in Commonwealth Countries, published in 2016. So according to how teachers are using this OER, see 64% of the respondent, they said that 64% of the vocational institutions, which teachers are registered through OER content through the various platforms, and they are getting benefited from these OER contents, and 54% of the faculty members are registered and getting trained in open universities. And this kind of trainings empowers teachers to develop and help others to develop OER contents. So this is one of the important aspects. And there are also some gaps in development of the OER throughout the Commonwealth. So these gaps should be addressed. And coming to the adopting of sharing of materials. So what kind of materials can we go into the open educational resources? There are text materials, lecture notes, slides. So these are all curriculum based contents. And so these are ease of adaptation. These are preferred formats. Anyone can easily download. 85% of the content available in the Word, PDF, and HTML
please
contents,
maintain the
as you
classroom
can see in the
decorum.
presentation.
Yeah, Kiran, just a minute. Please maintain the classroom decorum, and then please unmute. Please mute yourself. Don't unmute yourself unnecessarily. If it has been repeated, then I will remove them from the virtual room. Yes, please, Kiran, continue.
Yeah, see, there are many advantages of adopting and sharing of open educational resources. And most of the factors for adopting OER is 62% of the respondents say the content from OER platform they can easily download it. Coming to the locating, searching and retrieval of OER content from different platforms. So it is very interesting to know that 78% of the OER content can be downloaded through the search engines, especially the Google-like search engines, and 22% of the content downloaded from the repositories. These repositories are most common repositories were OER Commons, Wikipedia Commons, also directory of open educational resources. So these are all various platforms, OER tools and techniques where you can download, search and download the OER content for teaching, learning and education purposes. And the perception, the question was asked on the perceptions of the OER and the use of OER. See, 65% of the respondents, they say, means most of the teachers, they got benefited by using the OER, and 60% they admitted that this kind of contents from OER they will use for supplement for existing lessons or preparing lesson plans and all. And 60% of the respondents they feel that's a cost saving for the students, and 82% over is a good quality. I mean, the quality of the content in the OER are excellent quality. And very interesting point here is 56% prefer to check the authenticity and credibility of a material before using it. And this is a very interesting factor. Why? Because see, OER content which are freely available, when it doesn't mean that the content is freely available, the quality is compromised. So to answer this, so let me take you to this slide where InfluNet, this is Information Library Network, which is the major partner in designing the ePG Pathshala platform. So in developing the MOOC modules, so these are the framework, these are the guidelines have been set up in order to create any of the course content for open education resources platform like ePG Pathshala and various other platforms. Firstly, they have to identify the subject. So which are the topics or subjects which are in high demand, and who are the experts in that subject, These experts can be identified through the Vidwan database prepared by InflibNet. So through that, they will select the subject and the experts of that subject. And finally, the authoring the e-module means while preparing the module, they will prepare the guidelines for the authors. So what kind of content should go in, what are the rules, plagiarism checking, and how font size, etc. All the format and frameworks have been set up, and again content will be developed. And after the content will develop, the content will be posted on the it's open education resources platforms. Okay, and then very important thing is metadata. So any of the video lectures or any of the digital contents, one can easily prepare and post it on any other platforms. But the problem arises while searching and retrieving the resources. So to ease of searching and retrieval of e-content from any other platforms, metadata should be created. Metadata means describing the content. So metadata enrichment of all the e-content can be done by using the Library of Congress subject headings. So this is the very important aspect. Okay. So once metadata has been created, so it will be easy for all the learners, all the end users to easily search and locate all the e-content from the OER platforms. So here the quality of the e-content is not compromised. Okay. And some of the challenges connected to OER by evaluating or recontextualizing of OER. Of course, there are barriers of using OER. Firstly, it's a lack of time, lack of awareness, and low internet connectivity. Of course, these are some of the basic challenges which has to be addressed. And most of the OER content are supported by Creative Commons licenses. These Creative Commons licenses provide various forms of licensing options. So these options provides free tools for authors, scientists or educators mark their content, creative work with the freedom they want it to carry. Means the authors can create their content. They can permit who can use this content for what purpose. So by using this Creative Commons licensing platforms. These Creative Commons attributes, this is self-attribution, share alike, non-derivatives. So these are the various Creative Commons licenses which can define how the content loaded, modified, restructured, etc. Let us discuss some of the Indian initiatives in open educational resources. So this is very important to know. Most of the Indian initiatives of open electronic resources are initiated by Government of India, especially the Ministry of MHRD. We begin with ePathshala. This is one of the popular OER platform for school children. So this is developed by NCERT, National Council for Education and Research Training. So NCERT, so it's all books are available in digital version. All the textbooks from standard 1 to standard 12 in English, Hindi, Urdu, all the textbooks of NCERT are digitized and made available through this ePathshala platform. And 15 students have already downloaded this ePathshala app. And you can see the popularity of this app. Within a year, the visits, they have crossed over 130 million mark. So this has observed in 18th March 2008. Source is the Twitter of ePathshala app. So you can see that this ePathshala app, this is more popular among the schools at the primary level. So this ePathshala can be downloaded from this website as well as Google Apps. You can easily download and make use of this e-content. The second initiative is National Institute of Open Schooling, NIOS. So NIOS providing easy access to educational materials for vocational programs at various levels of secondary and senior secondary +2 levels. This project is carried out in partnership with state level institutions and organizations. So basically this NIOS digitize all the teaching learning contents for teachers as well as the students of these secondary and senior secondary levels. They can download the contents, they can make use of the content through this platform. Yes. And next one is National Repository of Open Educational Resources. NROER. So this is a collaborative platform provided by MHRD, which brings together everyone interested in school and teacher across India, and which was launched in the year 2013. Collect or provide digital and digitizable resources of school education and teacher education across India. So this is one important aspect. Okay, so all the open education learning content which are available in different platforms. So these are searched and located at this platform, NROER. So this is a national-wide repository for all open educational resources. And ePG Pathashala. This is one of the most popular OER platform, and this is an initiative of University Grants Commission for providing free access to standardized e-textbooks for postgraduate courses in different universities of the country. And this project is undertaken by NME ICT, means National Mission for Education, Information Communication Technology. So this is one project. So according to this project, the high quality curriculum based interactive e-content in different subjects across all disciplines of at postgraduate levels have been developed and made available all the contents in the ePG Pathashala program. You can see this website of ePG Pathashala. And very interesting to know that, so all the 70 subjects of postgraduate level are all identified, and 723 papers are courses or MOOC courses have been designed for all the 70 courses. And you can see there are more than 20,000 e-text in PDF format. Curriculum based materials are available. 19,000 plus video lectures are available to guide to students and learners, and 3,200 plus experts they have created all these content. So these are experts in the subject because these contents have been, the experts are chosen by Vidwan database developed by InflipNet, and 30,000 plus quiz question papers are also available across the different subjects and papers. And one more important OER platform initiated by NME ICT is Vidyamitra. So this is an online learning portal for all the e-content projects developed under NME ICT. So all the projects developed by under the guidance of NME ICT, so which are all the e-contents are made available in a single umbrella and made it searchable and retrievable to all the students and learners. So it provides seamless access to e-contents developed by various OER platforms and bring them under single umbrella, enable the users to access all e-content through single window platform, and adopt digital preservation strategies, so which is very important. You can see this Vidyamitra website. So all the contents developed under NME ICT are all posted here, searched and retrieved from this platform. And this is an award-winning OER platform. So recently it has got an international award for its structure and content which host into this website. So this is one of the important OER platform which has hosted majority of electronic resources. Next one is the National Program on Technology Enhanced Learning, NPTEL. So, so this was the initiative of the 7 IITs, and along with the IISc Bangalore in 2003. So the aim of this platform is to enhance the quality of engineering education in the country by providing easy access to curriculum-based video and web sources in engineering sciences. You can see the website. So NPTEL, all the 7 IITs along with the IISc are the major partners. So the major aim is to enhance the quality of engineering courses. So all the engineering students, they can take the courses from this course. They can download the curriculum based contents, video lectures, and they can prepare for the examinations. So another important platform, OER platform, is National Digital Library of India. So this was launched in May 2016 as a pilot project, and it was dedicated to the nation on June 19, 2018. And it is a national mission project by Ministry of Human Resource and Development and IIT Kharagpur to empower citizens through the digital literacy. And one of the important feature is it help the meta search of Indian OER repositories. So all the OER repositories can be searched and retrieved through this platform, that is National Digital Library of India. For example, Krishi Kosha, Shodhaganga, NPTEL, NCERT, e-textbook. So there are various OER platforms. The contents of these platforms can be searched and retrieved from this National Digital Library of India. So this is the website. You can see here there's so many contents. National Knowledge Network. So that is established in 2010 under the recommendation of National Knowledge Commission. Its aim is to connect all educational institutions, universities, research institutions, libraries, laboratories, healthcare, agricultural, across the country through high bandwidth network. So that is the aim of this National Knowledge Network, to connect to the network for all the educational, agricultural, and medical research institutions. So in order to create the knowledge society of India and across the India. So you can see this website. You can also go through the content of this OER platform. So this is the website you can go through later. So the next one is Consortia for Educational Communication. Consortium for Educational Communication, CEC. So this is the Inter-University Center set up by the University Grants Commission. And it is a consortium of 21 educational multimedia research centers. So all the multimedia research centers spread across the India. So they joined together and they started the producing the educational materials, programs on syllabus-based topics, and they can be disseminated through TV channels, EduSat, and internet. So all the educated related videos, they can be produced and hosted from the different platforms. And these content can be archived in learning object repositories and digital video repositories as a backup and for future use. So this is the website. You can see through various channels, the contents can be produced and telecasted or broadcasted to the users. So whoever can make use of this content. So National Mission of Education by using the Information and Commission, NME ICT. So this is a web portal. This is called as Sakshat. It provides one-stop access to e-content. So as I said before, all the contents, all the OERs developed under NME ICT are searched and retrieved under one platform, NME ICT. You can see this website. So through this NME ICT website, you can search the content at the school level, undergraduate level, postgraduate level. I have highlighted all the contents which are available for the postgraduate levels. Some of the platforms such as Swayam, Swayamprabha, NDLI, National Digital Library of India, Spoken Tutorials, FOSSAI. So all these OER platforms which are designed under the guidance of NME ICT, all these contents are posted in this website. So this is one of the resourceful OER platform for the students or learners for all ages. So Agropedia, so this is another OER content for agriculture related information. So this is a one-stop portal for all information connected to the agriculture in India. So this is the website. And one of the important OER platform, that is Shodhaganga. So most of you have aware of this website, Shodhaganga. It's a digital repository of Indian thesis and dissertation set up by Inflimed, Information Library Network. It was launched in 2010. And this repository provides easy access to thesis and dissertations submitted to the Indian universities by doctoral and other research students. So you can see, this is the website. See, 440 Indian universities, they have been contributing all their PhD thesis to this OER platform. Okay, there are 269,850 full text theses are already uploaded in the Shodhaganga repositories. And 511 universities are already signed the MOU for contributing, uploading their thesis to this web portal. So after Shodhaganga, there is one more repository that is called as Shodhagangotri. This Shoda Gangotri is the repository of Indian research progress with MRPs, PDFs, Emirate fellowships. Means the concept, the aim is before conducting the research, so the minor right before writing the research projects and all, the researcher, they has to search their topic whether any researcher have already conducted the research on the topics, so they can search here and come to know that whether anybody has done on their topics or not to avoid duplicates and all. So this is one of the important platform to checking to avoiding duplication in conducting the research activities. So Vidyanidhi project. So this is also one of the open access institutional repository, and it was launched in April 2013. It covers all the scholarly publications, conferences, book reviews of Mysore University, and all the theses of Indian theses in different languages. They are all digitized and hosted under this platform, Vidyanidhi project. You can see this website hosted by, currently hosted by Mysore University. Next is eGyanKosh. eGyanKosh, that is, this is the OER platform developed by Indira Gandhi National Open University, launched eGyanKosh in 2005. So basically to store, index, preserve and redistribute, share its digital resources. And you will be surprised to know 95% of the self-instruction course materials of IGNOU are now available in digital format. So 40,000 plus self-learning printed materials are already being digitized and made available to this eGyanKosh platform. And 1,800 videos are also the students, learners can access to. And IGNOU is the world's first open university to adopt OER policy license. So this is about IGNOU and eGyanKosh. You can see this website. You can download educational syllabus curriculum based content, and you can watch videos connected to different subjects of IGNOU. And one of the important OER platform, and not only important, it's very popular among the young aspiring minds, Swayam. The Swayam platform initiated by Government of India to provide free massive open online courses. So basically these are the MOOC courses for all kinds of subjects. So these all MOOC courses have been hosted through the Swayam platform. Okay, and there are 9 identified coordinators are there. So they are joining the consortium and preparing they are responsible for preparing the MOOC courses and hosting on the Swayam platform. And okay, you can see this website, all the ARPIT courses, MOOC courses, okay, FDPs, Swayam courses under the undergraduate level, postgraduate level. So all the courses, learners or students can enroll here and they can start taking the courses. And through Swayam platform, see here there is one UGC has preparing the regulation. In regulation of 2016. It is a credit framework for online learning courses through Swayam. So means those, there are learning courses available at the Swayam platform, and the number of courses, name of the courses which are going to be offered are announced in the Swayam platform on June 1 and November 1st on every year. And the students or learners, they choose the courses. Up to 20% of their courses, credits, they can opt through the Swayam platform. And once they get through the courses, the credits will be transferred to their courses. So according to the UGC regulation 2016, all the universities, they can make use of this benefit. So the students, so if they want to join the courses, they want to do the courses from Swayam platform, so they can opt for at least 20% of the courses from the Swayam courses. If they successfully get through the courses, the credit will be transferred to their subjects at the university level. Now, these are all Indian initiatives of OER platforms, and we have seen that most of the OER initiatives are initiated and developed by Government of India, MHRD, IITs, IISc, etc. And let us discuss some of the global initiatives, OER contents at the global level. So first one is OER Commons. So this is the public library of OER, the platform to content authoring and remixing. So here educators, empowering educators, to share and improve OER since 2007. So worldwide, the experts, they can create their courses, they can offer courses. So learners from across the country, across the world, so they can register, they can do the courses, download the contents free of cost. They can make use of all the resources which are contributed and developed through experts from across the world. And Merlot, it is also a free online community of OER resources for faculty and students of higher education from around the world to share the learning materials and pedagogy. This is also one of the very popular OER platform across the world. And one more important OER platform at the global level is the Wiki University. So Wiki University is a part of Wikipedia project. So it invites all the researchers, scholars, learners. They can join, they can contribute, they can join the courses, they can download the content, upload the content, they can do whatever they can in this. I mean, all sort of permissions they have given. All the contents are developed to the wiki pages. Open textbook library, all the textbooks which are openly available, which are out of copyright restrictions, all these textbooks, they can be downloaded through this project, Open Textbook Library. And there is one more platform, DOAB, Directory of Open Access Books. So through this platform also, one can download the textbooks. Then other OER universities such as OER Commons, Kuriki, CK12, Connections, Khan Academy. So there are plenty of open education resources which are available nowadays. So any of the teachers, learners, students, they can make use of all these contents to prepare their coursework, prepare for their examinations. And teachers, they can make use of these content for preparing their lesson plans, etc. A lot of contents are available. So we have seen a lot of OER platforms which help the teachers, students, and learners in going through all this curriculum-based contents, and some of the challenges users may face while using the OERs. So what are these challenges? Firstly, technical barriers such as lack of bandwidth access, economic barriers means so inadequate resources to invest in the required hardware and software. So one has to invest in hardware and software. So economic barriers are there. Social barriers such as lack of skills needed to use the technology. Instructions in institutions regarding OER, who can use, how to host the contents. All these are policy-oriented barriers. Legal barriers such as time and expense associated with gaining permissions to use. These copyright issues. So these are the legal barriers. So these are some of the challenges posed by the OER. So this can be easily tackled with the advent of a lot of ICT improvements. And now, the open educational resources we have covered Indian universities and world universities. Now let us focus on open access journals. So because open online education resources, what we have discussed right now, till now, so they are freely available content developed by subject experts, okay, out of many of the licensing and restrictions and all. So similarly, so open access journals. So this is also scholarly content, research contents which are made available free of cost to the users. So what is open access? Now this is very interesting to know. So open access literature is basically digital, free of charge. So anybody can freely download the content on the internet and free of most of the copyright and licensing restrictions. So there are no restrictions from the user end to download the content and make uses it possible on the internet. So copyright is owned by the author. In the commercial publishers, what happens? The copyright owned by the publishers. But here in case of open access publications, the copyright owned by the author himself. Okay, and there are some of the qualities, features of open access. That is, open access is compatible with copyright. It's all the copyright licensing restrictions are free in case of the open access. Anybody can freely download the content. And peer review, this is one of the important qualities, because any of the research content which is freely available, it doesn't compromise with the quality and authenticity of the content. So to ensure the quality, the standards of the content published in the open access platform, it has to be go through the scrutiny process, peer review process. So this peer review process can be rigorously done by open access journals. Okay, and preservations, there are good practice of preservation of these things. And prestige and career advancement, these are connected to the author. So authors, one who publishes his research materials into the open access journals, so free of cost, all the users, these fellow researchers who's working in the same subject field, they can download this content, they can cite his work. So basically the author gets more visibility, more impact, more number of people they can quote his work, cite his work, appreciate his work, so that he will be very popular among the fellow researchers. Whereas in the traditional publishers, so once the author article get published in the traditional publishers, so the access will get only those who can subscribe to those content. But in case of open access, so everybody can be downloaded these contents. And the content published in open access platform, these are properly indexed. So many of the popular databases can create indexing content so that users can easily search and retrieve or download the electronic content. There will be no barriers to downloading and searching such kind of contents because of the indexing, proper indexing is done. And other features are support services associated with the conventional scholarly literature. So all other features are just like a commercial publishers. So this is about the basic introduction about the open access journals. And basically you can see this open access focuses on academic research. And open access is intended to be free for readers and not free for the producers. Means the author has to pay to get their research article published. So this is called as author processing fees and for conducting or carrying the peer review process. So, and this is author owns the original copyright. So you can understand this better with this slide. You can see I have compared here the traditional publishers and open access publishers. Now the author conduct the research activity, he can prepare the manuscript and submit it to the journal. So this is a traditional journal platform, this is open access publishing platform. In both the platforms, peer review process has been conducted. So here in the peer review process in the traditional publishers, the publisher invests for peer review process, but here in the open access, author has to pay author processing charges for carrying out the peer review process. So this is the major difference between traditional journals and commercial journals with the open access journals. And one of the important difference between these two is here the copyright owned by the publisher, and in the open access the copyright owned by the authors. So here what happens in the traditional publishers, the author who actually does the research, conduct the experiments, write the manuscript, research outputs, and submit it to the journals, all efforts he can take, and ultimately who owns the copyright? The publishers. So this is again the issues concerned in the traditional publishers. Whereas in the open access journals, the copyright owned by the author himself. This is one of the important difference between open access and commercial publishers. And archiving. So in the traditional, the content can be published print as well as in digital, but in open access, the content will be published in only digital format. And the article disseminations means how the journal articles in the commercial platform, it can be published. It can be subscribed to paid license for online access, for print access, for individual paid document delivery. Means to get access to the commercial publishers, one has to pay and get the access. But whereas in the open access, what happens? The users can download, freely access the scholarly content published under the open access journal platforms. So this is the major difference between traditional commercial and open access journals. And there are two different models in open access publishing. Firstly, the green open access model. That means it allows the researchers to put their manuscripts in institutional repositories, and it becomes accessible to one and all. Means the authors, the scientists, the researchers, their articles. So whatever articles they have published already, they can upload their content into the institutional repositories. We are going to discuss the institutional repository in the coming slides. And open access, gold open access model. So in this gold open access model, researchers pay the author processing charges for peer review process and make their content immediately accessible in the open publication. Means directly authors publishing their content into the open access journals. This is a BOR open access content. So this is called as open access, gold open access model. And one has to be very careful with the predatory journals. The difference between open access journals and predatory journals is very subtle. So in the open access journals, what happens? So author has to pay for the author processing charges for peer review, and the peer review process has been rigorously taken care of by the publishers. But here in the predatory journals, what happens? We also charge the author processing charges for publishing the manuscript, but they do not undertake rigorous peer review activities. So this is the major difference. Okay. So this is one slide that will help you to understand. So if a researcher publishes his content in a commercial journal platforms, then what happens? And along with the commercial journal platforms, if a researcher uploads his research content in the institutional repositories or open access digital repositories, so immediately his content can go online. So immediately the fellow researchers who are working in the same field, they can immediately access to the research output of the researchers. So you can see here the time lag. So once the author conduct the research and his research output published, it will take, the time lag is equal to 18 months, 1 to 1.5 years it will take to get published an article. Okay, so but here what you can see, article, once the manuscript is prepared, this is manuscript, this is called as the preprint. So this preprint prepared by the author, submitted to the journal. This journal editor conduct the peer review process. So once peer review process is done, major corrections, suggestions have been carried out by the author, suggested by the editors or reviewers. So this copy is called as postprint. And once postprint is ready, it is ready for the publication. And then it gets published, it will take almost 12 to 18 months. So this is the traditional commercial platform, and this is a limited access. So if you combine this process with the open access method, what happens? You can see here, once the author prepares his manuscripts, he can simultaneously submit his preprints to open access archives. So open access archives, these are the digital repositories where all the researchers, they can continuously watch what are the latest content that are published in their content, in their subject fields and all. So once the author submit his preprint version of his article into the preprint repositories, so his article is open to everybody. So anybody can easily download, get access to his research content. So in the traditional model, what happens? Once the article gets submitted until it published, it will take approximately 12 to 18 months. But here, within fraction of seconds, your article get published worldwide. So that is one advantage. And after peer review process, postprint is ready. So this postprint also you can upload it in your institutional repository websites or open access repositories. And once the article also get published, the researchers, they can submit their full text materials to the institutional repositories. So all the three copies, preprints, postprints, and final version of the PDF. So all the three versions can go into the institutional repository simultaneously. So it will give the quick access, maximum research impact can be seen in this platform. It's a traditional approach along with the open access, self-archiving. I hope you have understood this slide. And this is one site. This is called as DOAJ. So Directory of Open Access Journals. All the, in this directory, so worldwide, all the open access journals which are publishing, which have been identified, indexed, and made available at a single platform. So this is called as the DOAJ. You can see here 14,536 journals worldwide published in the open access mode. 11,537 articles from 133 countries. Around 48 lakh articles are available from these journals, 14,000 and all journals. You can search the journals, you can browse the journal subject country wise, okay, and you can directly search the content by using the keywords and download the full text. Okay. And these are the various publishers. They have signed the MOU with the open access platform. So they also publishes open access content along with the commercial publishers by charging the APC charges from the authors. And one of the popular open access journals in the world is PLOS journals. So these are very popular open access journals. So in these journals, there are a lot of Nobel laureate scientists. They have contributed their articles, and these open access journals can compete some of the popular commercial journals. So that is the advantage, the popularity of open access journals. And you can see in the Indian scenario, so NISCARE, it has published all 17 journals online. You can see Indian Journals of Biological this thing. You can see in the Library and Information Science, Annals of Library and Information Science, etc. There are 17 journals in different subject fields. So all the journals publishing from NISCARE, earlier it was called as InStock. So all these journals are made open access. You can browse the content, download the research articles from this platform. And there is one more platform. This is called as Institution Repository of Indian Academy of Sciences. So there are 11 journals published by Indian Academy of Sciences. All the journals are open access. So one can easily browse this content of the journals, freely download the journal articles, etc., and make use of this content for their teaching, research, and educational purposes. And predatory journals. What are the predatory journals? As I said before, this predatory publishing is generally defined as for profit. They are profit-making intensive motive, and they do not engage in rigorous peer review activities. And these journals have no standards and no quality control, and frequently publish within a few brief period of time while claiming that articles are peer reviewed. So one has to be very careful in difference when submitting their articles. Okay, open access journals and predatory journals. Okay, and institutional repositories. So this is also one of the very important open access platform where all the researchers from the same institution can, when all the intellectual content of the university or the organization can go into the one repository that is called as institution repository. You can see here this definition. The institution repository is a digital archive of the intellectual product created by the faculty, research staff, and student of an institution or the university, and made accessible to the end users, both within and outside of the institution, with few, if any, barriers to access. Okay. So all the intellectual content prepared by the faculty, research staff, students, all are collected and hosted at one platform. This is called as the institutional repository. And there are a lot of benefits by setting up the institutional repositories. So benefits for researchers from the point of view of librarians. So in terms of researchers, so immediately their research articles get disseminated, he will get more visibility, impact. He will get immediate feedback or comment from his fellow colleagues to improve his article, like that. And this 24 access, 24-hour by 7 access to all the web-enabled devices, his research content. And a single researcher's lifetime work can easily locate at a single place in the institution repository. Okay, and provision of value-added services in order to promotions and award. So in order to evaluate all those things. So if you want to know what is the research credibility of a scientist or a professor, so one can go into the institution repository under his name. How many research works he has published, one can easily go through and assess his work over a period of time. Okay. Similarly, there are benefits from the point of view of the university and the global community level. So here, universities, if they set up the institution repository, it is an effective marketing tool. So they can enroll more number of PhD students based on the quality work done by the faculty members. So all this work can be seen in the institution repository, and the institution's research work can be visible, and the reputation of the institution goes high if the impact of this research publication is very high. And good number of fundings can be attracted by the faculty members of this universities and all. So fundings can be attracted, enhanced fundings can be possible for the faculty members. Facilities of gathering data such as publication for assessment, awards, etc. And there are many other benefits of institutional repositories. Some of the popular institutional repositories like ePrints at IISc. So this is the institutional repository of University of Science. So all the research articles published by faculty members, researchers, scientists, and students, all the intellectual output of that ISC can be collected and preserved and hosted through this institutional repository platform. One can easily search by subject-wise, year-wise, author-wise. A lot of search mechanism has been given, and this from the end user is based on the copyright permissions given by the publisher. It doesn't mean that whatever article published and hosted in institution repositories, it can be easily downloadable. No, it is not like that. So each publishers, they have given permissions for publishing in the open access. Some publishers, they restrict hosting the final version of the PDF into the institution repositories. Some publishers, they will allow preprint and postprint version, and they doesn't allow the final versions, etc. So based on the publishers' policies towards the open access, the contents can be downloaded. It can be made open access, or content can be made closed access in the institution repositories based on the copyright permissions given by the publishers. And other popular institution repositories are, you can see the Mysore University institution repositories. All the content you can see published by the faculty members, students of Mysore University. Similarly, ETD at IISc, Electronic Thesis and Dissertations of Indian Institute of Science. So Indian Institute of Science is considered one of the premier, very popular institute in the country. And all the theses you can see here, the theses are uploaded, and one can easily download the full text thesis from this institutional repository. And the popular institutional repository is called a Shodhaganga. So this is the project initiated by UGC, hosted by InfLibNet, Information Library Network, Ahmedabad. You can see 511 universities, they have already signed MOU with the Shodhaganga platform. 440 universities contributing their PhDs, awarded PhDs to this portal. And you can see 269,850 full text theses are already uploaded into the Shodhaganga repository. So at different subject modules. So one can easily browse through the subject-wise, topic-wise. You can type the keywords and get access to the full text of thesis. So this is very important, very popular repository, institution repository hosted by InfLibNet. So these are all various initiatives, OER, Open Educational Resources, initiatives from India, from the global level, and we have already discussed the open access journals, open access contents, and some of the institutional repositories. So there are a lot of electronic resources are available. So some research faculties at the universities or colleges, they complain. So some our libraries, they are not able to subscribe the commercial journals. So we are deprived of getting access to the journals because libraries are not subscribing because there is lack of budgetary budget and all. So instead of complaining that, there are a lot of electronic resources are available at the open platform, at the OER content. There are different at the college level, at the undergraduate level, postgraduate level. So a lot of electronic resources are available, and freely, of course, they are available. So, and these are freely downloadable, and quality means these are scholarly contents. Means all these contents which are scrutiny process has been done, peer review process has been done. So all these scholarly contents are freely available over the internet. So one can easily make use of these contents and make use in the research, learning, and teaching activities. So in conclusion, what we can say here is the libraries have a major role to play in promoting the open education, learning, lifelong learning, and OER. Here, the librarian's work is commendable. So he's the librarian who can gather the content, posting it to the different OER. He can educate the users, curate the contents, and support to the searching and retrieving of the OER content or open access content to his users. So a lot of things can be done by the librarian. So, and not only the e-content hosting and all, the discovery service of OER is something that libraries is well planned to do. This librarian he will describe the content, means he can create the metadata so that the user can easily search the content and download it without any difficulty. So this can be made by the libraries. So in all we can say, so libraries, they have the major role to play in promoting the open education and lifelong learning and the OER. So with this, I thank you, all of you, for your patient hearing. And I acknowledge the fact that I have taken the slides from multiple sources, from InfluNet, ARPIT, ETTLIS courses, to develop this slide and other sources as well. Thank you, Anand. If you have any questions, we can discuss.
Yes, thank you, Kiran, for such a marathon lecture, I must say. Okay, and you have covered each and every nook and gully of online sources. I hope so, and I congratulate on behalf of Honorable Vice Chancellor, Registrar Sir, Chairman, and then the Director, and my PG, my colleagues, my PG students, and my research scholars. Thank you very much for sparing your valuable time and giving us knowledge about online resources. So now the session is open for questions. Please, if you have any questions, any doubts, please ask him one by one.
Good morning, sir.
So good
Yeah,
morning,
please.
sir.
Yeah, please introduce
Audible?
yourself. Yeah, before posing a question, you please introduce yourself and then pose a question.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. This is Dr. P. Malati.
Yeah, sir.
Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead, ma'am. Yeah.
So this is Dr. P. Malati. This is Dr. P. Malati from Government Arts College.
Yes.
Good morning, Anasa.
Sir, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, you are audible. You are very much audible. Please go
So
ahead
it
with
was
your
in
question.
fact a wonderful presentation. Thank you. It was very holistic on research and other aspects of OER. Thank you to the presenter and also to the organizer and the university. I have a question here, sir. How do we distinguish an open journal and a predatory journal?
So predatory journals and open access journals, as I already said. So
Yes,
open
sir.
access journals, they are freely available, and major difference is the content is peer-reviewed content. This the open access publishers, they have take rigorous actions for the peer review process. But
Sir,
whereas in the predatory journals, they will take the charges from the authors, and they will not conduct the rigorous peer review actions. So this is the major difference.
yes, sir. But even in open access journals, they are getting money from the producers, manuscript writers, right? So how
Okay,
do we
yes.
distinguish? When in certain open access journals also we do pay, and predatory also we do pay. Just by looking at the title of the journal, how could we distinguish is the question.
Okay. Yeah, there
That's
are many features are there. So they will charge.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello, Kiran, this is Vikas Bhardwaj here. I'm sorry, I
Yes, sir.
couldn't listen to the whole lecture. I joined a bit later. So my question to you is, could you recommend some international repositories for a researcher of English language and literature, which have recently been made free in the this COVID-19? International repositories.
Yeah. So as I said, the institutional repositories.
Yeah.
So institutional repositories. So there is one platform, as I said, for open access journals. So DOAJ. So DOAJ is a director of open access journals. So you can browse all the journals subject wise. So for English or different language journals, you can browse all the journals which are open access journals. That is one thing. And the institutional repositories. These repositories, there is a directory of open access repositories. There is one website that is called as directory of open access repositories. There is subject-wise listing has been given. Worldwide institutional repositories, the content developed by various institutions, they have been registered to this international forum. So one can search with this directory subject-wise, and they can go through the content, e-content in the English language or various different subjects. So subject-wise categorization is made for the open access content in the open access journals as well as in the institutional repositories. Am I answer to your question?
Yeah, I think you settled his.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay then. Huh? Yeah. Thank you so much, Kiran Sonu sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the wonderful opportunity.
It's our pleasure. It's our pleasure. And then the next session will be around 12:15, and it starts exactly at 12:30. So if you find that room is occupied, I will be sharing the YouTube link on my FB account. You please join us there. Thank you. Bye-bye. See you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
खाली होतं ते करायचं व्हॉइस पाहू ना व्हॉइस कोण कॉलर नेमकी नाही